Today we have Giovanni Di Stefano, known as the real devil's advocate, for defending what some think the indefensible. Thank you, Giovanni, and welcome again. Last week you set social media alight, revealing the names of Blair and Campbell on the contact list of Jeffrey Epstein. What more can you tell us about Mr. Epstein which might answer some of the many unanswered questions?
Thank you, Caroline. Well, first of all, let me say one thing about Blair and Campbell and Mandelson, who's also on the contact list of Jeffrey Epstein there. One of the unforgivable factors of Tony Blair, and I'm going to put it to our viewers now, is this. He made an assertion to the British people and to the UK Parliament that Saddam Hussein, my client, had weapons of mass destruction that could hit London within 45 minutes. Now, I know that he was a useless barrister and he had a poor degree at university, but what I didn't know that he was also crap at mathematics. The distance between Baghdad and London is 4,100 kilometers, 2,500 miles approximately. For a missile within 45 minutes to hit London, it would have to travel at the speed of approximately 5,500 kilometers, per hour. Now, yes, NASA space ships do travel at 11,000, and there are certain weapons. For example, the Sarmat missile does travel that fast. However, it only travels that fast when it climbs. When it comes down into the Earth's atmosphere, maximum is 2,000 kilometers an hour. So by pure mathematics, all of us, including me, that didn't spot this at the time, who should have done a quick calculation, would have found that he is just a plain liar, which is why many, many people came out and called him Blair instead of Blair. And he got away with it. Now, why did I not deal with this in 2000? I've had that list since 2009. There, you will, the people who know me will remember that I acted for the Maxwell family as well in a private matter in Italy. So I was aware of what was effectively some of the contacts that they had, but I wasn't aware of Mr. Epstein or anything like that. But I had his contact book from 2009, which was part of a case with one of the Maxwell family brothers. Why did I not deal with that at the time there? Because there was no nexus. There was nothing to do with that. And I'm a person of the law. I have allegations against Tony Blair, which I took to court, and it cost me a considerable period of my time, because of the pact that exists between the Conservative Party and the Labour Party, which Mrs. Thatcher and Neil Kinnock set together, that they would protect each other in the event. Now, the reason that was because I actually began a prosecution in the European Court against Margaret Thatcher. We had a good laugh at that, incidentally, many years later at the Savoy Hotel there, regarding the Belgrano there. Now, that's to do with Blair. Jeffrey Epstein. What I've learned about Mr. Epstein, one of the questions that I've had hundreds of tweets and hundreds of DMs, hundreds of emails asking me, is he really dead? Is he alive? Well, whenever someone famous dies, John Lennon, Elvis Presley, Saddam Hussein, Arkan Milosevic, etc., 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 there are always the theories that they are actually alive. In the case of Elvis Presley, I knew 100% that he was dead, because if he'd been alive, he would never have allowed Lisa Marie to marry Michael Jackson. So that was a tester for me there. But is Mr. Epstein really dead? Well, here is this, the situation. I examined and read the pathologist report, and no doubt you'll be able to see on the screen there. One of the things that I noted was that there was a break in what was called the hyoid bone. It's close to the Adam's apple here. It is the only bone in the body that is not attached to any other bone. And the pathologist reported that that bone was broken. Now, anyone that's a defense lawyer or a prosecutor in murder cases, and I've done hundreds of murder cases, we also have to be quite specialist in post-mortem reports there. We have to be able to assess to make sure that it's consistent with, you know, what our client tells us there. Anyone that knows anything about pathology, the breaking of the hyoid bone is consistent not with suicide by hanging, but is consistent with someone being strangled. Now, what also we know is that on the 23rd of July 2019, allegedly, there had been another suicide attempt. I don't know whether someone tried to kill him, was disturbed and let it go, and he let it go. And he was put on a suicide watch, and then he was taken off a suicide watch. Was he killed? Did he commit suicide? The post-mortem report that I have read with the breakage of the hyoid bone is consistent with someone being strangled. Now, it's possible 1 in a million, and he could be the 1 in a million, of course, that it didn't, that, you know, the strangulation effectively was, did he die by breaking of the neck or did he die by strangulation? That's a matter, you know, for speculation there. One thing is for certain, he appears, or the body appears to be that of Epstein, and that. However, not many people know what happened to the body afterwards. I've made my own inquiries in New York. Does anybody know that the body was claimed by an anonymous associate? Now, who the hell is that? We simply do not know. We just simply do not know. The body was claimed. So we don't really know. We can't really say that it was his body, that the post-mortem report was that of him. It appears to be him, and it appears that. But more than that, we simply do not know. Then we come across one of the names on the list that I published before the court published theirs. Jean-Luc Brunel, who was a scout. He was a Frenchman that dealt with models, and it appears that there was some interesting relationship between Epstein and Mr. Brunel. Now, of course, many people would want to interview Mr. Brunel and say, because you're on the list, you know, I had an email from the French Ministry of Justice, you know, what I knew about Mr. Brunel there, because he's on the list. Well, of course, other than being on the list, I know nothing. However, we can't get to him. Why? Because he committed suicide by hanging in a prison cell in France in 2022. Well, there's a surprise. There. What else do we know about Mr. Epstein that is not really something of public knowledge? I heard, but this is hearsay, I didn't hear it from him because I've never had an opportunity of talking with Mr. Epstein, that in 1990, he applied for an Austrian passport. That passport was granted. Now, you would say, obviously, so what? Well, the so what is this. He used a false name. Now, why the hell would you want to use a false name in a passport that you apply for? And why did the Austrian authorities not look closer into this? That's another unanswered question there, but that's there. The greatest one of all that I find extremely concerning, Caroline, is this. I have put out on social media a request for investigative journalists to look into the relationship between the NatWest Bank, because they are heavy in the contact list there, and Jeffrey Epstein. It would appear that Epstein was well protected in, you know, in the UK. He had Scotland Yard on his contact list, and he had the Home Office. Now, my contact list has a lot of famous names, but it sure as hell does not have the Ministry of Interior. It certainly doesn't have the Home Office, and it certainly doesn't have Scotland Yard, because You would say, well, in case he might, you know, there was an emergency. Well, you dial 999 or 911 or 112, whichever country you're in. You don't have the telephone number of Scotland Yard or the Home Office. Why on God's name would you want to have that? So that needs to be looked in. Not a single investigative journalist has had the courage to ask questions about the dealings between NatWest Bank and Jeffrey Epstein. And incidentally, what accounts? Why not? Why have the bank not come clean? The moment that I disclosed that they were on his contact list and a major part, why did they not come clean and say, yes, they did it with Farage, they closed his account and they confirmed, and with a number of other clients as well, weren't that? But why not come clean and say, we had an account for Mr. Epstein, he had normal dealings, and that was that. We didn't know anything about him. We simply don't know. And that is the situation that leaves more questions to be asked than we can answer. Was it his body? We don't know. What happened to Jean-Luc Brunel? We don't know. Why are there so many suicides in this matter? We don't know. Where did he get his money from? He was just an ordinary broker. And incidentally, not a single person has been paid out of his estate. Why? Because the money seems to have just vanished in thin air. Mega millions. Is that the bank taking revenge upon him? Is NatWest involved? All of these questions. So I am inviting yet again, not only investigative journalists, but members of the public to write to their MPs and ask, what was the relationship between NatWest and Jeffrey Epstein? Because Epstein was convicted of a crime, and that means that there would be the possibilities of a confiscation order, even though he's dead, you know. And what part did the bank play? What did they know? We simply do not know. These are questions that need, you know, to be asked, and they need to be asked quickly, and we need to have answers sooner rather than later. And as for the body being claimed by an anonymous associate, that is extremely disconcerting. And it appears to be, finally, to end this, the pathologist wrote that it was an apparent suicide. An apparent suicide. He caveated it because, of course, he would know that people like me and others would look at the post-mortem report, look at the hide bone. People that probably wouldn't, you know, the average everyday person wouldn't know that. But those of us who practice in the criminal courts and deal with murder and deal with that, know, we have to know. And that is how he caveated it. There's another thing also, by the way. One of the photographs that I picked up in was the photograph of the district attorney saying the US versus Jeffrey Epstein. Well, there lies a problem, because in America, it's the people versus X. In this case, Mr. Epstein had the whole of America against him. That is also cause for concern. And there endeth the lesson for today.
Thank you for Giovanni. That is very, very interesting, and we look forward to hearing more from you in the future on this. And please, everybody, respond.